Personally, I feel like a woman's body is a woman's body, but there's a reason why. Did you know that America has the lowest birth rate that it's ever had before? And it's mainly affecting white people. So if you're the majority and you're trying to stay the majority and you don't want to become the minority, what is the best solution? Prevent abortions from happening. It's not about whether the child has life. It's not about any of these topics that you keep seeing people talk about on live. It's literally the matter of they don't want to be outnumbered soon. And this doesn't go for all white people. A lot of white people just are proud to be American. They don't care what the color is. So this ain't even a racist type of conversation. I'm just letting you know. The establishment needs more white babies.
So I just wanted to talk about this comment here. I really don't think that it's because white people are legitimately producing less children.
A video is going viral of a member of Congress trying to scare everyone about the falling birth rates in America. The problem with this is the only thing that this negatively affects is capitalism. And
why aren't millennials having kids? America's birth rate just hit an all-time low. Governments are panicking, calling for a collapse of our social structure as we know it. And they're blaming millennials for this collapse in our societal structure, citing our reasons to not have children to be nonsensical and over-emotional, that we're afraid to commit, and that we're doing it in revenge of our boomer parents. Quote, millennial women are rebelling against their baby boomer parents because they felt like the parent wasn't really there for them. Continue, quote, maybe they weren't there for their soccer games or dance recitals, and so millennial women are now not having children. And of course, there's the theory that millennials aren't having children because we spent all of our savings on avocado toast and lattes. This is a real quote from a millionaire. Then of course, there's a theory that millennials all caught the woke virus and feminist views and LGBTQ views have just killed our birth rate single-handedly. They've slipped up a little in their marketing scheme. Looks like your motives to ban abortion aren't so secret after all. I love this for us. Now, if you will, a list I've compiled of the real reasons that millennials are not having children.
Birth rates have suddenly gone off a cliff.
The population and its decline because people are not having kids.
Yes.
What's the overview?
So all over the world, and certainly in the U.S. and in Europe, it's most visible in Europe and in East Asia, birth rates have suddenly gone off a cliff. I mean, the South Korean birth rate now is barely 1/3 of replacement level. And there doesn't seem to be a bottom to this. And I mean, it's really stunning in that it's happening across every culture, or every religion, every ethnicity. The only thing that the countries have in common, attitudes towards women are different in these countries. The only things that these countries have in common is that they're wealthy.
I think if you talk to Dr. Welsing, she'll tell you this is about genetic annihilation or genetic survival, okay? It's about genetics. Who will survive America? Who will survive the world? Whose genetics will hold up? What is going to be the genotype that's on the planet 1,000 years from now? Will it be white? Will it be brown? Will it be black? And so you find that the elements of the human family that find themselves suffering from the ecology that we're in, they're struggling to survive and to be able to maintain themselves. All nations, European nations and America, white Americans, are at minus birth rate right now. Not zero birth rate, where they're keeping up with the natural death. They're at minus birth rate. And so that's why there's so much emphasis on artificial birth creation and other ways to have babies and make babies that are beyond the normal. And you'll also find that this adopting black babies, the Haiti thing, getting the children out of Central African Republic and Chad, adopting Filipino babies, Latino babies by the white community on such a high level, it is to reinfuse their gene pool with the melanin. I think if you talk...
Giving birth slightly dropped last year as the nation continues to see fewer babies born than it did before the pandemic. According to the CDC, there were over 3.6 million children born in 2022. That's 3,000 fewer than the year before and 15% below the peak hit in 2007, which saw over 4.3 million births. But the data also highlights an ongoing shift in the age of those giving birth. Birth rates among moms in their teens and early 20s dropped to another record low in 2022. The rates among those in their mid-30s and 40s having babies increased. For more on this, I am joined by Bradley Sherman. He's the
When you look at a chart of the birth rate in almost any Western country, you will see the same alarming trend. Now, obviously, this creates massive problems because in all these countries, there are giant social security as well as welfare schemes which require the younger generations to support the older generation.
Hey, millennials who are cavalier about not having children. 43-year-old childless person here to answer the question of what we do when we get into our 40s. Well,
don't save the birth rate. Let the population fall.
And it turns out that the U.S. birth rate is continuing decline as nearly half of women under 45 are childless. And that should surprise no one, especially if you've been listening to this podcast, as I've been telling women that there is a war on fertility really since the 1970s, since the rise of birth control pills and inserting hormones into your body and telling women that they shouldn't want to have children and that they should go to work and that they shouldn't aspire to take care of their husbands or their children or to be the CEOs of their homes, all things that are aspirational and wonderful. If you're listening to this podcast, I've been telling you that the government is in fact anti-family and you should not trust the government, least of all with your ovaries and your fertility. But what do I know? Why would you think that putting hormones into your body every day is a good thing for decades and decades and decades? And of course, what this is lending to are a bunch of women who are having fertility struggles. And it turns out that the U.S.
Oh, that is one disturbing headline. Teen birth rates in Texas rise for the first time in 15 years.
So when young adults who don't want children are asked why, they often give reasons like personal independence or I just don't want children, very individualistic reasons.
Yeah. So the misogyny and patriarchy.
China did have a one-child policy, but like about 10 years ago, they changed it to a two-child policy. And then a few years ago, they changed it to a three-child policy. And birth rate kept plummeting the whole time. So they had the lowest birth rate ever last year.
Really?
Yeah, China's birth rate right now is 40% below replacement. What we face is population collapse. Collapse. Like people have no idea how fast the population is going to collapse.
What are we trending
Japan is pretty far along in that. Like Japan actually lost like 600,000, went down by 600,000 people last year.
The Japanese are not in the bedroom at all, then.
It would
Not
seem,
at all.
It would seem not.
What about the U.S.? We got an increase, right?
Yeah, what I'm saying is the U.S. has been below replacement rate for 50 years. The only reason the population has increased
like yearly or
since
the
70s. Yeah, since the early 70s, since like 71, 72.
So why are we spewed with all this BS that we're overpopulating, but the population's growing, right?
No.
President Trump. President Trump, on behalf of all the MAGA patriots in America, I want to thank you for the historic victory for life in the Supreme Court yesterday.
Okay, serious question.
So on average in America right now, couples have 1.94 kids on average. That's the average rate of birth.
And that's terrible because that's not replacing.
We're not replacing the amount of deaths that are happening in our country. So if you want to save a culture, guys, those of you that are men out there right now that have a family and you're like, one kid, two kid, nah. Step up. It's time to step up. So on average in America right now, couples have 1.94 kids on average. That's the average rate of birth.
And that's terrible because that's not replacing.
We're not replacing the amount of deaths that are happening in our country. So if you want to save a culture, guys, those of you that are men out there right now.
This is why whites have low birth rates.
Christmas. This is an ancestor. Whoa. The Egungun, the Kuvita, the Umuo, the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, the Arusi are spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, and the goddesses and gods despise so-called Thanksgiving. They despise Christmas. They despise the false positioning of New Year's Day on January 1st. They despise all of the observances of the whites and their offspring because they despise disorder. They hate disorder. The Abosom, Orisha, the Nananum Nsamanfo, the Egungun are the divine embodiments and upholders of Nyamewa Nyame Nsheshe, divine order. And they have divine hate for anything or anyone that promotes that which is in conflict with divine order. Akomfuo, Abosomfuo, Babalaos, Olorishas, Dibias, Mamisis, Hungans, Bokonons, Sangomas, initiated Afurakani priests and Afurite Kaitnit priestesses, Mpanyimfo, purported elders and eldresses. Stop lying to the members of the Bosom Fie, the Ile, the shrine houses, the Afurakani Afurite Kaitnit masses.
This is why whites have low.
Breaking news, you guys. The United States infertility rate is at an all-time.
Congress is putting on a show.
Women would rather be single than be with Mr. Wrong or Mr.
Oh, I've been saying this for a while and now researchers are confirming it, that what's happening are two things. Let's start with the easy one. Women have always been told to pick better.
I saw this tweet about how experts are sounding the alarm on declining birth rates among younger generations. And they're essentially calling it a crisis. To me,
I think it's beautiful. It's like we're reproducing, though. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
We're not. That's the big problem. We're not. In fact, our birth rates are under replacement rate, way below replacement rate. And the reason that they're under replacement rate is because women will say, well, I love tradition, but I'm going to wait until all my fertile years are behind me, and then I'll get married when they're in their 30s. And that's why the average rate of a woman getting married in the United States is 30 years old.
I think it's beautiful. It's like we're reproducing.
It's got the bill to see how much it costs to give birth to our baby.
If your birth rate falls below what's called the replacement rate, then ultimately your population will decline unless you bring in immigrants. If your birth rate falls below what's called the replacement rate, then ultimately your population will decline unless you bring in immigrants. And more countries are now falling below the replacement rate. Japan has one of the lowest birth rates in the world with a fertility rate of just 1.3 births per woman. That's well below the replacement rate, which would need to be 2.1. Italy's birth rate is also very low, just 1.2 births per woman. That's the lowest ever. Spain's is now 1.2, which is below the replacement rate. South Korea's is the lowest in the world. It's 0.8 births per woman. Even China, one of the world's most populous country, its birth rate has fallen to 1.7 births per woman, which is also below the replacement rate. But first of all, there's a number of reasons why women...
Here it is right there. Elon Musk says civilization is going to crumble if people don't have more children. Why are people not having more children? Because they're doing this whole, I'll wait to 28. I'll wait till I grow up at 28. Then I'll start picking my mate. Then at the last second, I'll start dabbling into the eggs that I froze. Yeah, that ain't gonna work. Look at the birth rates already declining. We're beyond replacement level at this particular point. Good luck. Here it is right there. Elon.
There are more white people on welfare than there.
Today I'll be talking about the Yoruba tribe. And it's a tribe that can be found in West Africa, mainly in Nigeria. And it is one of the most populous tribes in Africa. The Yoruba tribe is known for being the tribe with the most amount of twins, and this is attributed to the fact that Yorubas are known for the high consumption of cassava, which people believe is the reason why Yorubas have a lot of twins. The twins are usually named Taiwo and Kende, Taiwo being the first to taste the world, and Kende meaning the second child. Yorubas are also known for having two weddings, usually the white wedding and the traditional wedding. Pictures behind me are like pictures from the traditional wedding, which tend to show the Yoruba culture, the food, the clothes, the music, the appreciation of the Yoruba culture itself. And this is usually a very big deal to Yoruba people. At a Nigerian traditional wedding. So they are.
Let's talk about these low birth rate numbers and what they say to you. How concerning is it?
How concerning is it?
Well, Elon Musk said the greatest threat to our civilization is not AI, it's not climate change, it is demographic collapse. And we're at the precipice. We're at 1.6 in terms of total fertility. We need to be at 2.1 or above to replace ourselves, and we're not doing that. And it's a crisis.
Is it surprising that people not having no children? Y'all really surprised? Look at the type of environment we gotta deal with, bitch. We is living in one large ass open asylum. That's what we live in. We can't afford shit. We can't afford to damn eat, bitch. They're closing down the damn dollar stores and hell half of us be eating up out of there. You see a need for concern. I see people being more responsible. When I tell you the girlies is not playing with y'all, they said it ain't no more room in they poom poom for no babies, bitch. The gateways from the spiritual realm is...
So there's this new article out that talks.
This is a map on fertility rates state by state in 2005. Most states around the country had a pretty significantly high fertility rate, at least compared to now. Change that map to the year 2021, and it is a shockingly different picture. The entire country significantly declining since 2005. In the grander scheme of things, the United States of America today is at an all-time low fertility rate, and 43 states across our country in 2020 recorded their lowest rate in more than 3 decades. As a result, total population growth in the United States actually hit an all-time low in 2021, and now up to 1 in every 4 pregnancies are estimated to be ending in miscarriages. Why is no one talking about this? Why is no one asking if massive birth control consumption might be linked to this? Why is no one demanding an environmental impact study from chemical abortion pills who have active metabolites after you've taken them that get flushed into our wastewater system? Why is no one asking about exercise rates or diet or the impact of the pharmaceutical industry in our fertility rate? Is nobody alarmed by this? Because we should be. This is a map on fertility rates state by state in 2005.
People died than were born in 2016. Data shows in 26 states, more white people died than were born in 2016. Data shows in 26 states, whites are dying faster than they're being born. Between 1999 and 2016, the number of white births fell by 10.8%. That stands at just over 2 million. Researchers suggest the reasons for this decrease are the Great Recession, a drop in fertility rates because people can't afford to have children, and a rise in mortality rates as most of the white population is aging and dying of natural causes while others are dying from drug overdoses. A demographer at the University of Texas at San Antonio and a co-author of the report says it seems that white people going under the 50% of the population mark might be happening a few years earlier than projected. Some of the states most affected by this shift are Oregon, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Florida, North and South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Michigan. Researchers are predicting by the year 2045, whites could drop well below 50% of the population. While the white population is decreasing, the census says minority populations are steadily rising.
Let's stop here. The reporter is indicating that researchers have predicted in 2016 that by the year 2045, whites or the Caucasian race will be well under 50% of the US population count. So it goes without saying, whites or the Caucasian race will become the minority of the US population. This conversation is being quietly talked about amongst news reporters and bloggers or what have you. But this is actually essential to know because of what this means for our future's sake. Now, keep in mind that they're telling us their prediction of when the whites will become the minority here in the US. But what they are not telling us is their prediction of when the Caucasians will go extinct. Why do you think that's the case? Could it be because the public would be afraid of what the truth may tell us? Or is it due to an agenda that someone or somebody's may have in their mind? Or is that agenda already underway? What's interesting to note here is that in March 2015, the US Census Bureau released their projections indicating that whites will become the new minority of the US population in 5 years, which will be the year 2020. And can anybody recall any of the 2020 U.S. Census population count results being revealed to the public by any mainstream media news or whatever outlet during the year 2020, 2021, or even now in 2022? Remember when Brandon, or some of you may know him as Joe Biden, not long after he became the new president, warned, or some of you may take it as a threatened so-called African Americans that Europeans will be the minority by 2040.
I've been around doing this for a long, long time. I don't always get it right, but I always take responsibility. When I get it wrong, I acknowledge I got it wrong. But my overarching objective, if we cannot make significant progress on racial equity, this country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. Hear me? Minority white European.
Now, this meeting was conducted during the same census-taking year of 2020. And Joe Biden stated that by the year 2040, this country will become minority white European, which is 5 years earlier than what researchers predicted in 2016, meaning that it will happen faster than what they predicted.
White people are going extinct. 1,000% yes. Is that a problem? Is that controversial? We live in a globalized world, a globalized society. We no longer have isolated races who never interact with one another. We as a society are mixing together. That's a good thing.
Who wants a good laugh? There are people out there right now reading this line and thinking to themselves, well, if that number went down, and if it keeps going down, then that means that someday I'm gonna be a minority.
People in America are going extinct. According to a statistical report, in all 50 states, white people are not reproducing fast enough to keep up with their death rate. Sounds a little harsh? Well, truth can be that way sometimes. In regards to abortion, people think this is about women's rights. While it is, at the same time it's not. Let's rewind back to when birth control and Planned Parenthood was first introduced. Margaret Sanger, the founder, is quoted saying, "We don't want the word to get out that we're trying to exterminate the Negro population." So what they intended for us is backfiring onto them because we're not going extinct. Mark my words, more states are going to pass abortion bans because it's all about maintaining control and securing a future for white supremacy. Why else would they want to ban abortions? These are the same people that complain about people needing government assistance. These are the same people that don't want to give people health care. These same people who justify immigrant children being detained don't give a damn about life. Desperate times call for desperate measures, right? All I'm saying is now's the time to get serious and be vigilant because there's no limit to what they'll do to maintain their power.
White people did not exist before 1681. White people did not exist before 1681. I'm going to break out my whiteboard for this one. In the 17th century, in the Maryland and Virginia British colonies, there were freed people of British and African descent living together, working together, and marrying each other. These people were equally disgruntled with the lack of land opportunities and wealth opportunities that they could have as compared to the elite. The social ladder was very hard to climb. These people became very disgruntled, resulting in Bacon's Rebellion. This was a rebellion that involved people of multiple national origins, including Briton and African, to go against the landholding elite. This posed a major threat to capitalism because the working class was united to overthrow the elite.
He said white people would become extinct in the year 2070. I was like, get out of here. But listen.
White people did not exist before 1681. I'm going to break out my whiteboard for this one.